We know Star Trek likes to teach us lessons about life and, everything. And I think the lesson we need to take away from this episode is that if you're going to become an omnipotent, godlike creature, just make sure you wear a guard, like a crotch guard. Hi, I'm Phil, welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like, including things like Doctor Who, the MCU, and of course Star Trek. And Star Trek is back on our screens. Lower Decks has returned. Possibly my favourite Star Trek show at the moment, out of the current crop, because it's just so damn funny. And it starts again strong here. We got the first episode of the second season, which is called, what's it called? Strange Energy. Forgot for a moment there. Strange Energy. Let's talk about briefly, if you don't want spoilers. I really enjoyed it. I found it funny. I found myself literally laughing out loud through several moments. And I thought it carried on some nice character development from the previous season and picked things up in a nice way from where they left off in the second season. That's all I'll say in a non-spoilery way. Let's get into spoilers. I'm going to be here with weekly reviews of Star Trek Lower Decks, apart from maybe 1 week where I'm going to be on holiday, but in a few weeks' time. But for the most part, weekly reviews of Star Trek Lower Decks here on the channel. So don't forget to hit subscribe so that you don't miss a single one of those. First of all, I really like the way this episode started. It kind of started in a very ominous, you had this ominous music, the way the camera was travelling through space and focusing in on those ships, and then you got the reveal of the Kardashian in the torture chamber with a hooded figure. It was all set up brilliantly. The music worked really well there. This sort of deeply low-key, ominous music. It made it feel like almost cinematic. And then, of course, it's revealed the person under the hood being tortured is Mariner. And I like what they did, really like what they did with this scene, because you start off, given how she ended up the last series, I think I went into this thinking, oh, okay, maybe she's really doing some, really cool undercover stuff for her mum here. Because we knew she was going to be working with her mum. Is she doing some kind of cool undercover mission? We get her starts being tortured. And then she starts talking in a very flippant way about, her problems with her mum. And sort of venting to the Cardassian torturer. And I didn't even click quite just then. But I was like, okay, this could just be Mariner. This is the kind of thing Mariner does. And we kind of see a little bit later on as well when she's dealing with Jack, being an omnipotent god. She's very flippant there and making jibes and stuff. And she doesn't entirely take situations like this particularly seriously. And I can imagine if she was captured by Cardassians and being tortured, she absolutely would act like this and be very flippant. But we very soon find out when she comes across Boimler and refuses to rescue him, and he makes a flippant comment about, oh, if I wasn't just a hologram, we realise this is a holodeck program. And I think this carries on quite nicely from the first season, because we had obviously the episode there where it was entirely set in the hologram program, and it was very much Mariner working out her issues, using the hologram of the holodeck as a sort of therapy, basically. And here we see the same thing. We get her dealing with, vocalizing her issues with her mum. We get her to Boimler, the holographic Boimler, vocalizing her feelings of betrayal about, him leaving and going to the Titan. And all the while, she's also getting a nice workout. Because when the program gets stopped and we get I can't remember the name, but did I write it down? No, I didn't. Jennifer? Was it Jennifer? I think it was Jennifer. Jennifer, the Andorian, come in and interrupt the program saying the captain wants to see her. She mentions that this is her workout program. And I like it. And Jennifer's like, I just do yoga. So I like the fact that they've continued this track of Mariner, doesn't vent this stuff to her friend. She's a very insular person, and she uses the holodeck for this sort of stuff. I also like the line to Jennifer about the fact, not to Jennifer, about Jennifer after Jennifer's left, that I know we're not meant to have personal conflicts, but I really hate that Andorian. Because back in TNG's early years, when Gene Roddenberry was still running the show, he had a rule that there should be no interpersonal conflict between the main crew of the Enterprise, which obviously is very difficult for then the writers, because a lot of drama comes from interpersonal conflict, and it's very hard to write an interesting drama without having some kind of interpersonal conflict between the main characters of the show that are going to be there week in, week out. And other shows past TNG early seasons as well, once Gene Roddenberry had passed and was no longer involved, and then also more so with Deep Space Nine and Voyager, they massively loosened up that rule. But I like the fact that it's referenced here, and it's kind of like, it's almost like it's a Starfleet kind of code that you're not meant to have conflicts with your colleagues. We then get to check in on what her actual relationship with her mother is like at this point, where they've got this kind of uneasy agreement that Mariner will help her mum out on things, and then, but in exchange, her mum, the captain, will let her do little side missions. And I like what these side missions are, because the planet they're currently at, Mariner wants to go down and just basically jet wash some buildings, clean some buildings up. They're a bit messy after the Industrial Revolution, and she wants to make them nice and clean again. And it's a nice little thing, and it kind of fits with what we've always seen of Mariner from that very first episode, where she was doing these little side missions covertly and against the captain's orders. She would go and, in that first episode, give farming equipment to some farmers in that very first episode. And this feels like a continuation of that, but now with Captain's approval. So she's getting official authorization to go and do this. I say official. The Captain does say it's off the books. According to Starfleet, no, but yes, you can go do it. And yeah, it's just really nice. It kind of shows that Mariner, these are kind of these ethical humanitarian missions, that little things to help the little people that Mariner really wants to do, which, again, going back to a lot of the themes of the first season, show, what Starfleet is and what Starfleet stands for is helping people in these humanitarian efforts. But, of course, this is a comedy show and things have to go wrong. So when she's cleaning the building down on there, she accidentally uncovers some kind of ancient thing which shoots a beam, which Jack, the second in command, Jack Ransom, he manages to, despite having, because he's shown before, and I like the fact that they're consistent with this as well, that he has a lot of conflict with Mariner, and he especially now does not like the way that he's been a bit sidelined since she started working with her mum. And so they establish a lot of conflict there. But when it comes down to it, he protects his crew, and when the beam shoots, he jumps in the way of it to try and save Mariner's life, and gets struck by it, which then turns him into an omnipotent god. There are lots of nice references in this plot back. I really like the fact that, they reference Gary Mitchell becoming big, and when they're deciding how to deal with Ransom, they're like, how did they deal with Gary Mitchell? And the Doctor's like, well, Kirk dropped a boulder on him. So then the rest of the plot with these characters is basically dealing with Ransom and his omnipotent powers and his feelings of wanting to, feelings of being pushed aside for Mariner, and his resentment of that. And it's quite fun. There's lots of funny moments that absolutely fit with the Ransom character. Like, he immediately starts working out on and turns the planet into a gym, and he turns loads of the local population into copies of himself, shades of the Master in Doctor Who there from the special, that was at the end of time. Just turns so everyone has Ransom's face, and they're all working out in the gym. And then another reference to previous Star Treks, he becomes a big giant. He sends his head up to become a big giant head in the sky, to bite the ship and have a go at the captain for pushing him aside. It was I enjoyed this. There were lots of funny moments in it, lots of nice references, and how it got resolved was that basically, initially they start to weaken his power by the captain realizes she can compliment him. And because this is all tied up in his feelings of being left aside, that validation he gets from the compliments kind of make him feel less angry, and it's the anger that's fueling the state he's in at the moment. So he gets less angry as she starts to compliment him, but then that goes wrong, and he suddenly thinks, hey, yeah, I am good, I should be the captain, and then he gets angry again that she's the captain and he's not, so starts attacking again, at which point he completely loses power because we find out Mariner has just kicked him in the balls. Ooh, ouch. So she kicks him and it drains down and he starts to get back to normal again. His costume, because he's kind of changed into this really regal robes, but then reverts back to his Starfleet uniform and kind of comes out of it and goes, oh, what happened? But then he starts feeling angry again and the glowy eyes start happening again. So she kicks him again and she just has to keep on kicking him to stop him reverting back to this godlike thing. All the while that's going on, there's the secondary plot, which is within Rutherford and Tendi, where Rutherford is displaying some, because obviously he had a bit of his brain and his cybernetic implants ripped out at the end of the last season and put back, and we were left with him not knowing having lost most of his memories, and obviously some time has passed since then. He's sort of re-established some relationships with Tendi and presumably Mariner and the crew as well. But he is slightly different and he's still got some memory issues. He's going on a date with, what's her name? Barnes. He's going on a date with Barnes, who was the Trill that he went on a date with way back in early season 1, which the date didn't go well because she wasn't that interested in science or something like that. I can't remember exactly what happened, but basically it didn't work out after the first date. But here he's gone on 3 dates with her since he's had his implant repaired and his brain repaired. So he also likes pears now, where he never liked pears before. So Tendi is now worried, but also I think quite jealous, and I think this is an interesting development in their ongoing relationship. I'm still shipping them. I'm still shipping these two. They've got to end up together eventually. And at the moment, she's evidently very jealous of the fact that he's gone off 3 dates with her, and so she sort of like implies that there must be something wrong with his implant and it might kill him, so she desperately needs to fix it. And there's this whole plot of them doing tests and him not wanting the tests because they hurt him, and eventually they sort of come to the realization, or she admits that she was doing it because she was scared that he would change so much that he wouldn't like her anymore and wouldn't want to be her friend, which was a very sweet little moment in the corridor, very touching. And she also manages to get it so that he doesn't like pears anymore. Why that was important, I don't know, but they fix it. He says he'll always be her friend. They fix the pear thing, and she whispers to him, please don't go on any dates please don't date Barnes, which again I think is because she's jealous, because really they belong together. This was a nice little B plot for them. I think it was good to see them get a significant amount in the first episode, because I think one of my main criticisms of the first season, and I didn't have many, was that they kind of felt a bit in the background. And although they weren't involved in the threat to the ship plot here, they had a fairly significant storyline, and that worked really well, so I'm glad they did. And I hope we get to see more of them going on, and it doesn't just revert back to the Mariner and Boimler show. Talking of Boimler, we didn't really get much of him this episode, and I was absolutely fine with that. We got the little holographic Boimler at the beginning who has like 2 lines. That's fine. Nice to remind us about him there at the top, but then he wasn't in most of the episode. And then at the very end, when after all of the drama has finished and they're just sitting around, the lower decks crew are sitting around discussing things and pondering what Boimler's up to and saying how much he must be enjoying it, we of course cut back to the Titan, and he is not enjoying it. He is having a very stressful time on the bridge of the Titan, being attacked by Pakleds and led into some kind of weird anomaly that then distorts them. And I think it was a good choice not to have him in this episode. I think remind us of him at the beginning, set up what's going to happen with him, presumably next episode at the end, and it was just a reminder that he exists. It didn't revert back the status quo right away, which I think was a danger. I would hate to see all the progress that they'd made in the first episode undone. Inevitably, I think Boimler's going to end up back on the Cerritos. I think that's probably just inevitable for the structure of the show. But what I hope is it doesn't happen too quickly. I think we're going to have possibly a Cerritos coming to the rescue of the Titan episode, maybe next episode. Maybe they'll have another adventure first and then go to it. Who knows? And then maybe I would like to see, maybe Boimler could come back about halfway through the season. But I'd like him to come back and not just revert back to how he was at the, I don't want all that character development from that first season to completely disappear. I think going to the Titan and realizing that kind of work isn't for him is important, but let's not completely revert back. And similarly with the Tendi and Rutherford stuff, I don't want a whole nother season of kind of like them just being... I want something else to happen there as well. And actually thinking about it, the Mariner and her mother, the Mariner and the captain plots kind of ends with them agreeing that they don't like working with each other, and let's not do that anymore. So again, that kind of feels a little bit like stepping back to the status quo. In fact, she even throws her in the brig at the end. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't go too much. I want to see some of that character progress continue, and not just revert back to like episode 3 of the first season. But let's see what happens with it. So like I said, good episode. Laughed out loud several times throughout this episode. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to next week's. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz for more. I want to hear your views. What do you think of it? And I will see you again next week for another Star Trek Lower Decks review. See you then.